Hello, everybody. Guess what time it is? It is time for Moment of Presence with Michelle, me, from Moksha Grace Coaching. So I am so glad that you're here. Welcome. And yeah, we're going to talk about an interesting topic today that I know everyone has had some kind of experience with. And we're going to be real about talking about trauma. What may be traumatic for others may not be traumatic for us. True? True. So I'm really glad that you're here and we're going to dive into this. And if you can, take a moment, say hello in the comments and let me know, put your name in there because I can't see who it is unless you put your name. And yeah, like to see who's here and who's listening and where you're from. So make sure that you let me know. So, do any of you know anybody whose trauma has become their personality? That it's become their identity? According to the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, trauma is the lasting emotional response that often results from living through a distressing event. Experiencing a traumatic event can harm a person's sense of safety, sense of self, and ability to regulate emotions and navigate relationships. Know anybody like that? So, what do we do about that? Right? And that's what we're going to talk about today is not just other people and relating to them and managing your relationship with them, but what about if them is us? What if it's us? Some people who develop an entire personality around an experience that they had, they're living it. They're stuck in that time. And they're not truly living, right? They're not truly fully living. Maybe they find a way to bring it up in a conversation or a lot of conversations. Maybe they don't try very hard. Why bother? The same thing is going to happen again. I'm just going to fail. Sometimes, like, you might have a friend or we all, as married couples, we have friends, and sometimes things happen in those relationships. Even when we were kids, somebody goes out, they start dating somebody, but then on the side, they're dating somebody else. And then all of a sudden, the person becomes what you would call a player because they think that every relationship is going to be the same. And so when these things happen, what we need to do is actually turn within. And we need to dive in and look at this from different perspectives. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So it'll give you some tools to use for your own traumas. And I'll always say start small. Don't start with the biggest trauma in your life. Start with something that's smaller and take it in little pieces. Okay. I'm not going to downplay traumas. That's not what this is about. A traumatic event is a traumatic event. They definitely can shape us. But it's very easy to allow the trauma to swallow us and consume us. And that's what we don't want to do because that's when we stop living the full life. So back in the day, I did it. I had traumas in my life, and I would either think that the same thing is going to happen, so I should just expect it. Not until I dove in and did the work from myself, on myself, was I able to move past it. And so why is it easier for some to work through it and kind of shake it off? And why is it harder for some of us? So that's what we're going to talk about today. But real quick, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Michelle Moksha Grace. And I am a certified life coach. And I specialize in emotional intelligence and life transitions. I'm not a mental health professional, and you should absolutely seek out medical help if you believe you need it. I've done therapy in my life. Who hasn't? And yes, it can help. But I coach clients that are ready and willing to acknowledge, identify, and disarm their triggers, learn to manage their emotions, and respond to their situations. They have a better, stronger, and more stable relationships with others, with themselves. They have better outcomes in stressful and dysfunctional situations. Their careers can improve, their lives improve. So, the things we talk about and the techniques that I teach are to inspire, motivate, and facilitate change in your life. Now, back to moment of presence. So, what we do, in case you're new, is we're going to take 3 deep breaths together. And as we breathe in, I want you just to think about some of the things that come up for you, some of the triggers, and we'll hold it for 3 seconds and then we're going to exhale. And we're going to do that 3 times in a row. So, big deep breath in, hold it, and then big exhale. And then we're going to do that again. Big deep breath in, hold it, and big exhale. And one more. Big deep breath in. And one big long breath out. Let it all go. All right. Well, I see that we have some people joining us, so that's excellent. Krista's here, and a few others are joining us from some other, I think, LinkedIn and YouTube. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. The group as well, Calm the Chaos, with anyone that you know that would benefit from these discussions. Also, if you haven't joined Calm the Chaos, as far as the group, what it offers is live chats, Q&As, a community of like-minded people working towards similar things as you. So, all right. So let's dive into this. All right. So, what did I want to talk about next? Trauma identity. So, trauma identity. Are you identifying as your trauma? Or are you identifying with your trauma? Can you acknowledge that you've had trauma, or have you become it? And has it consumed you? That might look like somebody in victim mode. It could look like somebody in a pity party. And again, we're not downplaying, but we are making observations. And what I always tell my clients is that's when it's best to get curious. Curious, not judging, right? Not assuming, but getting curious. The energy of trauma as a victim or a survivor are two very different things. You can identify that, yes, this trauma happened and I survived it, or this trauma happened and I learned from it. It's a journey, but when you're ready, we take the emotion out of it and again, get curious. We look at what did go right? What were the good aspects? What were the lessons learned? So let's take a trauma that we've all been through, right? The last couple years. There were lockdowns, we couldn't go out, we couldn't do anything. Some people lost friends, relatives, not just from, well, death was the big one. And as horrifying as that is, there were also people that we lost because there was judging going on. It actually turned us against each other in some cases. And so if you take a look at that and go, okay, take the emotion out, what went right? I did see a lot of people coming together to help small businesses. I did see a lot of people spending more family time together. I did notice that people were spending more time outside in their backyard. A lot of people learned the beauty and just the wonder of working remotely. So, those were good aspects. And what lessons did we learn? And I'll let you be the judge of that because we all learned different lessons, didn't we? But take an inventory of that. And if you want to start with that one before you dive into the ones that are more personal to you. But let's look at this a different way, from a different viewpoint. And we all know that person who is living in the past in a very positive moment, right? The football star that made the winning touchdown and won the state championship for his school. And now it's brought up every time he's with his friends. And he hasn't gotten past it. And he still thinks he's that jock back then. And he's waiting for just another opportunity to be celebrated the same way. Not that it's a trauma, but it's something that that person has now created their identity around. And so if you take it away from them, what do they feel is left of them? And there's a lot of good stuff left in them, but they don't always see it because they're still thinking that they're back in the past. And when you're not in the present moment and you're in the past, and even when you're in the future worrying about, oh my gosh, is that trauma going to happen again? You're missing out on the moments. You're missing out on celebrating the moment, the life that you can be living right now. So again, get curious. What went right in those situations? Why is the person not applying the same thing if it brought such kind of fame, right? Why isn't he applying the same thing? Why isn't he moving on? And so that can be something to look at and be honest. If it's you, it's okay. Cool. Now that you know, you can identify, you can acknowledge it, identify it, and you can move on as long as you work through it. Now, the most dependable strategy that I have ever found to move past something is understanding and seeing the various perspectives. The understanding is what brings peace. Knowledge is power. Knowledge can be peaceful as well. So I can completely understand why something happened, and that allows me to emotionally detach from the situation and look at it for what it is. Now, what if, Michelle, what if we don't understand what happened? What if we don't hear the other side of the story? The person is no longer with us. Maybe they've passed on. That happened to me in a family situation. So I had to look at the situation. I had to look at the perspectives, the different perspectives. And I had to do some internal work within myself, not to take responsibility for it, but to understand. And you can get playful with this, and you can have a conversation with yourself about it. It's similar to forgiveness, but it's not talked about as much. So when I had a toxic boss, that didn't have anything to do with me. That had to do with the person, not me. It says more about the person than it does about you. But why did I allow it to affect me so much? Why did I allow it to throw me for a loop? And so those are the things that we can look at and we can address, because we can't control other people. We can't change other people. They have to do their own work. So forgiveness can come after this, and we'll discuss that in a different moment of presence, because that is a different conversation. But when you think about it, when you're still carrying the trauma, the hurt, the anger, the frustration, grief, shame, blame, disappointment, who is it hurting? Is it hurting the other person that may have caused the trauma? Or is it hurting you? And so that's why forgiving is about releasing, not about forgetting. But again, we'll go into this in a different conversation. So, one of the things that I share with my clients is an emotional gauge. And it's really important because it helps you improve your mood. It shows you where you're at that moment and then how to feel a little bit better. It helps you understand how to move the needle on the gauge, but not go from one extreme to the other. So you're not going to go from depressed to empowered, right? That's hard to get to unless you have a really, really good playlist and you can really rock it. Um, Overwhelmed to feeling fully calm without uh, medication or alcohol or any other thing that's going to numb you. But how to do it on your own. It's very powerful. When you know how to use it, you work up to a better mindset. Instead of over trying, you do it a little bit at a time. And the more you use it, the faster you can flip your mood. And so when we have a trauma response or we get triggered, we can use the emotional gauge to help us move past it. It doesn't mean to push down your emotions though. And that's really important because you have to acknowledge and you have to process those emotions at some point in your life. Because just like I've talked about in the past, those warning lights in your car, the engine light that comes on, that if we ignore, then the car breaks down. It's the same thing with our emotions. And so you don't want to keep pushing and pushing and pushing those emotions down, thinking that they're not going to bubble up, because guess what? They're going to bubble up and it's going to be more like a volcano erupting. And you don't want that, because that's when we say things that we don't mean. We lash out at people, or we go in solitude and we self isolate. And that's not healthy either. So, what I teach with the emotional gauge is how to go from depressed to disappointed. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but actually, disappointed is more empowering than feeling depressed. You can go from disappointed to hopeful. Well, maybe that won't happen again. And then you can work your way up from hopeful to passionate. So it's kind of like a little game, kind of makes it fun, but it also makes it very simple. So the emotional predictor, that's another thing that I teach. Because if you can be proactive about your emotions, if you can think ahead and go, oh, I can tell that this is bugging me. This could potentially trigger me. I'm starting to feel some emotions, and then address it then before it gets out of hand. Well, now you're doing yourself a service and you're helping yourself. So these are all shifts in mindset and perspectives. It makes it better for you and everybody that you're involved with. The question is, how many times have you tried this on your own? And what has it cost you to keep ending up with the same pattern over and over again? What opportunities have you lost? What people around you have you lost because they don't want to hear it anymore? And again, not downplaying your trauma, just talking about how you can move forward and have the life that you deserve. Most people need accountability to break the habit and move forward. And to make any new habit, it takes about 30 days. So I help my clients build healthy habits and new beliefs and routines that support them. And I help them create a path, a path to identify their emotional intelligence, what's holding them back, and how to move forward. And that's how we master the chaos together. So if you're ready to dive in and you want to stop these patterns, you want to take a dive in, but you don't want to do it alone, then book a call and let's just have a conversation. We might be right to work together. We might not be, but it's a conversation, and conversations never hurt. Remember, knowledge is power. So as a reminder, if you haven't joined Calm the Chaos, please go over there and join the Calm the Chaos group. Matter of fact, I am going to go head over there as soon as we're done here, and we're going to have a after moment of presence chat. And if anybody wants to ask questions or share or just talk things out, I'm going to be over there in the group. So if you join, you can join now and you can get in on that. So thanks for being here, and thank yourself for giving time to yourself. Don't forget, like and subscribe, share the video, because we all know somebody who needs to hear these messages. We all know somebody who needs to take a break in the middle of the week, at the end of a Wednesday, and just breathe and just be present. So every day you have a choice. You can make it the best day or the worst day, but choose well, choose wisely. And I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.